an advocacy group seeking to bring about legislation and policies that contribute to the elimination of extreme poverty around the world. Former Regional Director for Africa with Opportunity International, he was also the first CEO of the Opportunity International Network. Mr. Reed is a graduate from Wheaton College and the John Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. Genzo Yamamoto at Opportunity International. Genzo leads Opportunity's knowledge management team dedicated to the review, research, evaluation of, and knowledge generation from Opportunity's community and economic development work around the world. This involves researching clients or markets, supporting program strategy and optimization, piloting and capturing learnings from innovations, and conducting impact studies, touching Opportunity's various sector programs, microbusiness, education, agriculture, digital, and training. Genzo holds a PhD from Yale and a CEP from the Evaluators Institute affiliated with Claremont Graduate University. Thank you very much. Give them an applause, please.
We can get the slideshow put up. So, welcome to all of you. Now, Genzo and I both have worked with Opportunity International. I used to work with Opportunity. Genzo currently works with Opportunity. That makes us both opportunistas. Okay, so you all had a fun time last night. Now, I'm afraid I have to bring you bad news. There is a disease that is infecting charitable organizations, non-governmental organizations, social enterprises. It is spreading around the world, and if it is not stopped in time, it will be fatal to these organizations. So I'm here to tell you about this disease and what you can do to stop it. And I'm going to do it first by... Can I get this going? We advance. Okay. I'm going to tell you the story of a company with a social mission that caught this disease and what happened to them. Now, Genzo, let's say you had a $100 million social investment fund. Would you invest $1 million in this black box?
Well, it looks pretty.
Yeah. So that's worth $1 million, right? Let me tell you what it does, okay? This box will do over 300 different blood tests with just a prick of your finger. So can you imagine you no longer have to go to the doctor and get strapped up and get the needle stuck into your arm? Just a little pinprick, put it in here, and it will do all of those tests. So you ready to invest?
No.
How about you? You ready to invest $1 million? Okay, we got some. They don't want to get stuck in the arm anymore. Okay, let's see. Now, for those of you, Now, what if she pitched this investment to you? Would you invest now? Actually, what she would say to you, this is Elizabeth Holmes. She's the one who started this business. She actually dropped out of Stanford as a sophomore to start up this business. She had this idea. She hated going to the doctor and getting the blood drawn from her. And then she thought of little babies getting blood drawn from them. That seemed awful. Why stick a needle into a little baby's arm? And she would even tell you the story of her uncle who died of cancer. And she loved her uncle, she would say. And if he had just been able to get blood tests earlier, blood tests had been a regular part of his health care. It wasn't something they only did when you had symptoms, but you could do it regularly. And they would have found those cancer markers before he had the symptoms, and they would have been able to prescribe medicine for him, he could have been cured, he could still be alive. So now would you invest?
Maybe.
Maybe? Okay, let's go one more. What if she had a lot of famous people who were her friends? Okay, her board members, George Schultz, James Mattis, Henry Kissinger, these are famous people, all people in the cabinet of different presidents in the United States. She also was able to line up huge multi-million-dollar deals with Walgreens and Safeway. So these are big chain distribution stores in the U.S. They were going to reconfigure the insides of their stores so that they would have health centers in them with this machine, and people could go and get this work done. So
Now I might love
okay,
it.
now you're just, you see a market for it. Okay, and you feel pretty good when we get to the next slide here. She's on the cover of every business magazine. And let's go one more. Now it's worth $9 billion. Feeling pretty good about your investment now. It's doubled, tripled. She's seen as one of the new group of businesses in Silicon Valley that's worth billions of dollars. So she owns half of the company. She's worth $4.5 billion now. So this sophomore dropout with this mission to make blood tests available to everyone, something you could do without hurting yourself. She's got this great company, and she's got major investors behind her. The big venture capital firms are ready to invest. But things start to go wrong a little bit. So let's see the next. So there's starting to be some news stories coming out. Do another one? Okay, I figured it out. News stories saying maybe not everything is like it should be. In fact, this man you see here, his name is John Kerry. He's a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, and he started to figure out, it didn't seem like everything added up here. The problem was, the machine never actually worked. The blood test didn't come out right. They would get the blood, and then they would take it somewhere else to get the test done because the machine wasn't working the way it was supposed to. They got to put in Walgreens, and it started giving the wrong results. Now, can you imagine getting the wrong results on a blood test? It says that you have hypertension and you don't, or it says that you're not diabetic but you are, or that you have heart disease, or you don't have heart disease when you do. I mean, she's putting people's lives at stake here. She's still saying everything's good, we've got a great company, look at all these great investors behind us, they wouldn't invest in the wrong thing. And yet, when this reporter comes out with this book called Bad Blood, he recounts everything that has happened here in this company. She and her top staff knew that the machine didn't work. Yet she kept hyping it, she kept selling it, she kept bringing in more investment because she believed that it was the right thing to do. She believed that this was going to help save humanity, that this was going to make us all healthier. So, okay, the machine doesn't work, but we'll get it. We'll get it to work. It'll just be a little while. And she kept denying right up until the government comes in and closes the business down. She's now on trial for securities fraud, but she still believes that she was doing the right thing. And so this author, they on an interview show, they asked him, how could this happen? How could someone put people's lives at risk, keep selling this machine that doesn't work, and people will follow her? And his answer for it was noble cause corruption. This is what happened. She believed so much in her cause that she thought, okay, some things aren't going quite right, but the cause is worth it. And if I let this bad news out, if I tell people the machine's not working, they're not going to fund us, and this thing will never happen. So she just kept telling more lies and more lies, and she told them so often she believed them herself. And so she kept building up, kept getting more investment, kept getting more pressure, which caused her to lie more and more until the whole thing collapsed. And she has no business. And she may be going to jail for a long time. Well, that's a horrific story. Can't imagine any of that happening to any of us, right? Now, I've worked in this field of microfinance all of my life. And we have our own period of hype. We probably can't see this clearly here. This is microfinance here. This is poverty here. This is the way we were seeing ourselves as we were going to swallow poverty and take care of it worldwide. And we saw this great growth in the number of borrowers from up to over 200 million around the world. And Professor Eunice won a Nobel Peace Prize for being the leader of this work. But as we went on, we saw maybe not everything was what we said it was. Some stories started coming out about microfinance not working. The reports on the interest rates, especially in Mexico, started to come out, and we heard that maybe people weren't doing better. In India, they talked about perhaps some of the suicides in the rural areas were related to people not being able to pay back their loans. And we also found that while we had this great growth in the number of borrowers, when people actually counted the number of extremely poor people that received loans, those numbers were going down. And so, even in a field like microfinance, where so many people got into it because they wanted to see poverty eliminated, we sort of told a story that was better than reality. And when reality set in, when the real results of some studies came in, we started to see that what we were saying did not actually match what was really happening. We told our best stories. We didn't tell the stories of things that didn't work. And so this is about the time you came into the microfinance, right? So,
30, 40 microfinance partners across that all poverty almost single-handedly. So the claim microfinance organizations in the industry that we're looking at are making the same claims. If we don't make those claims, we will look bad. So there's a tendency to continue. I think another thing that can happen is that if you're interested in fundraising, has this problem, you want to tell the best story there is to tell. But the reality, of course, on the ground is not always that beautiful.
So what about all of you see maybe a little bit of this setting into your organization? Okay, we've got a few honest people here. Thank you. Well, I'm going to tell you steps you can take to the first, and it's what we're their evaluation in the market. What does that have to do? They actually put people's health at risk. Similarly, in order to make that grow, we have less and less benefit for each person that we make enough money to stay in business, we measure our assets, we measure the number of people. What's happening in Opportunity in this?
Necessarily perfect in themselves, but Opportunity International also struggled with this. And we ended up participating in agreed upon international consensus rules. So there's actually a fairly rigorous way to get your microfinance organization certified. You can engage in social performance measurement and also to get certified in the SMART campaign. And starting from the top, defining and monitoring social goals, ensuring board management and employee commitment to the social goals, designing products, service, and delivery channels that meet. This is one tool that we have found to be useful. Now, in my role, if you can imagine a program strategy as being the bottom orange cog, and the client impact being, and we've identified 5 different things that researchers within an organization can help. Researching clients and markets and impact. And of course, if there are learnings, you can then share those learnings with the broader industry. Now, you can't do everything all the time. But you can actually create a graph that says, here's the cost and difficulty of the research study. And the further you go this way, the more expensive and difficult it is. And then you can talk about influence. Some will have more influence than others as you go up. Now, some research is very simple. You can do client stories. Now, researchers might say that could be biased, But you could try not to be and say, let's get the worst story, the best story, the average story, and get a sense of things. Or you can go all the way up to the top and attempt a randomized control trial, which is very expensive, but is known to be very reliable. So, if we're going to understand social impact, I would say that actually, of course, some of these studies on the top might prove impact more, but actually everything can help you get a sense of whether your programs are being effective or not.
All right, so let me stop here and ask all of you, so if we have the microphones ready, what are some of the tools that you use beyond the poverty stoplight? Anyone have an example? Okay, satisfaction surveys from the clients. All right, so just getting clients to report whether or not they like what you did is very important. It gives you very good information. Any others that people use? Another one that many organizations find useful are exit surveys. If the client chooses to leave, then you want to find out why. Did something go wrong or did something go right? And you want to know the reason that they left the organization. Fundación Paraguaya received well, this will go with the next one. Invite experts to assess evidence. So this is the second step. This is something Theranos actively avoided. They kept touting a study that was done by a university that said that their machine was effective. What the study actually did was a prospective study saying if there was such a machine, it might be able to do these things. Hadn't even looked at the machine itself. And so they avoided external experts actually looking at, does it do what it said it's going to do? Can we do a randomized controlled trial? Can we test this machine against other ways of testing blood and see that we get the same results? So, having a way to invite experts who are not part of your organization to assess whether or not you are achieving your results is very important.
So Opportunity has tried. Once I joined Opportunity about 8 years ago, and there were already some efforts being made prior to my time with them to say, let's occasionally make sure that we are doing impact evaluations. Not all impact evaluations have to be randomized control trials. And not all impact evaluations have to look at the whole of your operations. You can actually take a look at various aspects of your operations and test whether that portion is effective or not. So over time, we've tried to say you have to be very strategic. You don't want to do an impact evaluation on a program that's still immature. You want it to be stable, you want it to be mature, and so on. But little by little, we're trying to do studies like this. And eventually, you can put together I have here deep dive impact studies. So over the years, we are slowly working on testing various aspects of our programs that we have across different partners. And they have medium touch sense of impact. And then if you were to go into my second page, you will see the light touch impact, where it's less rigorous, but still suggestive.
All right, so we already got the joke on this. Let's talk about step 2, inviting outside experts to assess your performance. What are some of the ways that your organizations have done that? Especially ways that don't, if you don't get $1 million grant to do a randomized controlled trial, or some group comes in that already has that funded, what do you do to measure your impact? How do you get people outside your organization to help you measure it?
Can I show up the previous slide? There's propensity score matching designs. You can just do any simple research that has a control and a treatment. You can do a developmental evaluation. You can actually do appreciative inquiry. You can have various kinds of qualitative research that gives you a sense of what is going on at the ground. So all of that is potentially valid. It's just, you just have to be more careful because more bias can creep in with the system.
Go ahead, please, for now.
We buy it again, so.
You brought it again, so, right? Yeah, that's a great way.
We as microfinance organization also work with social impact evaluators, those rating companies that evaluate your financial aspect, your social aspect, and also how you work with your clients, what gets us shown. But we also have Kathy. I mean, we recently, 2 years ago, created our own monitoring evaluation area to promote research to try to find impact. And finally, we open our organization for researchers that would like to conduct any study. At this moment, we have 10 research in place. Many of them are run by PhD students in very different, with different levels of deep, I mean, different, as you shown, Genso, and also focus in different aspects of what we do.
Very good. Got one more?
Allow interns to come and collect client stories, very simple client stories. It was, external, but something very simple to do.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's great, as long as you try to get not just the nice stories, but you get the whole range. Yeah.
And one more is to be open and to support donors and funders to come and do their own due diligence.
Mm-hmm. Right, so this sort of transparency, saying anyone come on in and look. Now, you also got another one, which was the True Lift Award, which is an award specifically looking at organizations that are oriented to eliminating poverty, and it evaluates whether or not they measure the poverty levels of their clients, they measure changes over time in the poverty levels of their clients, and they adjust their program to better increase the reduction of poverty among their clients. So this is an external group that will come and help assess you on those areas.
And I think the social raters are organizations like Microfinanza.
Right.
And I think opportunities for banks right now, two of them couldn't quite finish the SMART certification, and we got a BB rating because we couldn't quite make it cost effective enough, and there was competition issues that made it, they couldn't fulfill. But the other two banks have been SMART certified.
Yep. Okay. So this is, is there another? Sí.
No hablo inglés, lo siento, pero la consulta. ¿Qué parámetros ustedes miden al momento de hacer la consultoría de impacto o de medición?
What are the parameters you use when you do your impact evaluations or assessments?
What parameters?
Yeah.
It's a great question.
Can you get to it a little bit?
I think if you will allow me, can I wait on that and maybe see if my next response will answer? If it doesn't, you can ask again and I'll.
So this is comparing your performance to your mission and reporting it. So if this is what you think your mission is going to achieve and this is what your actual result is, then you need to be able to look and say, we're falling behind. We're not, what do we have to do to achieve our result? And so in the case of Theranos, they never defined the number of people that they wanted to see health improved on as a result of their machine. They only looked at the money side of things. And so actually their machine was even weaker than the person in the slide.
So, to make sure that the organization is moving with the mission, we touch base with our bank CEOs. And they said one of the things we try to do is look at our own performance. We look at staff performance. There's a quarterly staff performance, and we try to make sure from the bottom all the way into the top leadership that their performance and their behavior is actually in alignment with the values and the behavior of the organization. Also at the program level, there's increasing interest in mission-aligned performance. And so at the board level, the U.S. office, for example, has a stewardship and impact subcommittee in the board. And across our banks, we have either social performance management subcommittees or transformation subcommittees. They're named different things, but there is the board takes social performance as an absolutely important thing to review. And then, of course, at the senior leader level in an organization, and even at the program leadership levels. Now, of course, the question might be, okay, how do you measure? But maybe I'll wait on that question for a moment. I just want to reiterate the point that Kati Hamner made yesterday. That it's so easy to focus on inputs, what goes into the system, outputs, what we do as part of our activities, but forget to measure outcomes. What happens to the people we serve and impact? So I just want to mention that it's important to focus on outcomes and impact. Opportunity International we've sometimes produced beautiful financial dashboards so that would please the heart of bankers. But just because you have a social mission, a social vision, and you are running sustainable operations, of course, doesn't mean you're getting the outcomes you want. I think that's it.
So this means that in your organization, at every level you evaluate performance, you should be getting regular reports on how you are performing against your mission. So your dashboard should not be just output measures, it should be mission measures as well. Your board, as Ginzo said, I've seen some microfinance organizations that create a social audit committee on the board, like the social transformation committees Ginzo talked about. But they've empowered the social audit committee with the same power as the financial audit committee. So they have the power to go in independently and look at what's going on in the organization, to call for outsiders to come and assess the social performance, because the organization said, this is what we exist for, not for the finances. Finances are important to make sure we can keep going, but we want to audit our social activity, our social results, as much as we audit our financial results. What about you? What are some things your organizations do to make sure on an ongoing basis that you are tracking your progress against your mission?
Perhaps similar.
We collect monthly program reports from each program, and we share them with our board of directors. Great.
The mission is transformed into a strategic plan. And this strategic plan, that is for 5 years, we establish annual goals that are transformed into a spreadsheet we call OPPM, one-page project management. This is the way we make sure that the mission is operationalized. And we report this OPPM. We review with every manager this OPPM, and we report final document to the committees of the board and to the board itself.
Very good. That sounds wonderful. Sorry, there was more.
You are the mad scientist.
If I could just make another comment, I forgot I had a few more slides. This might get a little closer to your question. Of course, opportunity, we have had one CEO of a bank saying, we're beginning to do this, but I wish we had been focusing on social performance from many years ago. So we are by no means perfect at this. But one of the things is, I think Luis Fernando mentioned that you go from your goals and you go back and test your program. Now here's a theory of change for one of our programs. You can see how complicated it is. This may not be quite so useful, but of course this is only at ground level. If you go up one level, you can begin to understand what a program is trying to do. And if you go up to a higher level, at this top level, we're looking at 4 different programs. And all these 4 different programs, we think, add up to a handful of things that we think that all these programs are leading to. So I think this might get a little closer to your question about parameters, but it is to say, you want to come up with indicators that touch the parameters you want to touch. Now, of course, the poverty spotlight is beautiful in accessing 50 different indicators, and that's absolutely important. In our case, we are expecting impact on clients, but we are also expecting impact on systems. We are also expecting to see impact on the microfinance institutions we serve. So, in some ways, we have kind of a 3-dimensional impact that we need to measure for us to know that our programs are being effective.
And number 4 is very, Martin.
How do you define systems? How do you measure whether your little minuscule program can even touch or affect a system? It must be a small system.
Absolutely. Systems, of course, can be as big as national systems, cultural systems, social norms. We are only just one organization attempting to do our bit. But in terms of systems, I think we're using the phrase flexibly, although measurement, we're wrestling with measurement right now. The US board has said, Genzo, how do we measure this? And I'm scratching my head. But in terms of systems, it could be something as simple as a value chain. If you are helping farmers with inputs, better seeds, better fertilizer, but better crop may mean that they still can't get good prices at the market. So do we actually need to facilitate the whole market system for a series of crops? It's very humble. It's just simple market facilitation, but we are seeking to support a system.
When we research or work on just one specific problem or indicator in this case, sometimes you can find positive impact on that specific thing you're measuring. However, when organizations are working, for example, in the part stuff that we work with the multidimensional indicators, we can also see the correlation. Maybe we're solving one problem but creating multiple more by doing it. How are organizations measuring that if they're trying to focus on just one thing and not looking at the overall picture of quality of life?
Do you want to try that? I can say a few words too.
Well, yeah, and that's why having some sort of multidimensional report, like the stoplight, or your impact. If you just measure poverty, but families are breaking up, then you aren't achieving what you wanted to achieve. So finding ways of assessing, looking at clients' own report of their well-being, do they think it's better or not? But right, focusing on only one indicator, which is what often, a good study to try and focus on one thing, because that way you can see the change easier. So a scientific study will do that, but it may miss other things that are important.
One of the problems of quantitative research is that it's usually the researcher that defines the categories. So our team, my team, ended up saying, is there a way? Of course, we do both. We do both quantitative and qualitative research. But we ended up saying, can we do something that is qualitative, that hears the voice of the clients, and let them explain what's important to them. Quantitative research, you have to have your questions. I mean, in some ways, even the poverty stoplight, right? It's defining the 50 indicators. But my team said, well, one-on-one interviews can go anywhere and everywhere. Focus group discussions, you can lose sight of the individual. So we have come up with a mini story capture research methodology that divides interview questions into 4 parts. Human capital, physical capital, social capital, spiritual capital. And we sit down with a client and we say, can you tell us the most important story that happened to your family this past year? And we're only asking for 3 or 4 paragraphs, nothing more. And we do that across 4 dimensions. And we've come up with a way to score it. And then you can, once you score it, you can begin to produce your own graphs, and it makes it slightly feel like quantitative. But it's actually a qualitative research methodology. And that's one way to hear directly from clients what is actually on their heart and mind, not categories that we are asking about.
Another way that you sort of underpinning all of this 4th step, the whole organization has to cultivate integrity and transparency as core to who it is. This is something that Theranos did not do. In fact, everyone had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and they got sued if they talked to the press or talked to anyone outside the organization. The people who were selling stocks in the organization were never allowed to talk to the people who actually were developing the machine, find out how it was working. So they siloed information so that people didn't know what was actually going on beyond their specific job. And this is something where leaders set the example. Recently had Alex Counts, who started the Grameen Foundation. He was at our house on a book launch party. And he talked about one of the best things he did at Grameen Foundation that he wasn't planning, but one of the first retreats they had this 45-minute gap and he needed to fill it. So he just sat down with his team and talked about the mistakes he made over the past year. And he said he found out they loved it. They kept, well, you forgot this one and you forgot this one. But suddenly to have a leader who could admit his own mistakes, it made it open for everybody to be able to admit mistakes. To be able to say, oh yeah, we tried, but we messed up. What did we learn from that? How can we prevent that? That creates a culture where an organization is willing to say, this isn't working, we need to change it. And someone anywhere in the organization can say that, and it can get to the top and say, okay, we're going to fix it. Or maybe even it doesn't even need to get to the top, they just start to fix it right away. But that ability of being able to say, I messed up, I didn't do the right thing here, we need to figure out something else we can do. And that underpins all of this. If you don't have that, then the organization is going to just play games with the other steps.
Yeah, and that reminds me of a story that I actually didn't put on the slide. But when I first came on my job 8 years ago, my first assignment was that we had utterly failed in a program. And there were 2 large foundations that had given us the task of writing a paper describing why our program had failed. So it brings back memories. We asked this of our CEOs, and we found that they took the question in this direction. We tried to make sure that we have avenues for staff input. Now, please know, this isn't perfect, but our banks are making these efforts. We also, perhaps similar to what Mary has been saying, a couple of our CEOs said, if you want to create this culture, it needs to come from the very top. On integrity, it is an absolute must. It has to come from the top. And Opportunity Bank of Serbia senior managers are probably only one of all the bank senior managers in banking in Serbia don't take part in negotiating procurement and similar things. 3, true listening by leaders for problems and issues. So our banks have implemented, it's connected to the SPM, Social Performance Management and Smart Certification, the implementation of whistleblower policies. So again, the effort is to really be listening for problems.
Another thing that goes with this, all the best leaders I've seen in the microfinance organizations spend plenty of time in the field. And not only the top leader, but the people in the office, they don't spend all of their time there. They get out and see what's actually happening. So someone who's counting money and what's happening there actually knows what the result, how that money gets used in the field. But having a clear connection to the mission of the organization is important at all levels, and it helps foster this openness and transparency.
Yeah, if I can piggyback quickly, there's it's not a microfinance organization that's part of Opportunity International, but I once heard that there was this microfinance organization in India where the CEO had committed that every year he will spend 5 days in client homes, just so that he's experiencing this. And what happened was, it's not just the CEO understanding, the whole staff understood from that they need to be listening to clients. And so this leadership from the top then cascaded down to the whole staff.
Any examples of how you've seen organizations foster transparency and integrity?
We have an app for our clients, and the app has many features. But one of it is that clients and employees can report any case of fraud and sexual arrangement and harassment.
Right.
And that goes directly to a committee, and that committee's members are 2 board members plus the CEO and the COO of the Fundación Private.
That's wonderful.
So I mentor an organization called Pollinate Energy in India, and they help the poorest of the poor with access to electricity and other life-changing products. So they're very conscious of trying to get all of their effort, all of their time, all of their money spent on reaching their customer. But, and so they didn't have a lot of community internal meetings. And as they scaled out to other offices all across India, communications became difficult. So they made a commitment to actually bring everyone in, although it was expensive, and they felt guilty. They brought everyone into a meeting for 3 days, and they communicated very transparently and clearly to everyone. And they felt guilty about it beforehand, but afterwards they were a much better organization and much more able to do the things they needed to do everywhere across the company.
Very good. I know another large microfinance organization that every year they have the employees elect 12 people who are keepers of the mission, and that's their responsibility. And then any report of an infraction against the values of the organization goes to that committee, and they assess whether that person violated the values of the organization and what the penalty should be if they did. In addition, this group assesses the performance of the leadership staff according to the values of the organization. So it's a way for sort of people who are elected are the people who best display the values of the organization, and then they're the ones who help keep the rest of the organization in line. So it's a way of setting up a system to make sure transparency and integrity continues to be a key part of the organization.
There's there's this recently slightly controversial discussion about radical transparency. It's slightly controversial because the Black Box, this investment organization said that they would record every conversation. And conversations will show that it's totally transparent. But the Bank of Serbia CEO of Opportunity Bank said, we're doing a version, not recording, but we're trying to be radically transparent, and he thinks it's working well. So there's that.
The next one is to put industry experts on the board. Now, in the case of Theranos, I told you who the board members were: James Mattis, Henry Kissinger, George Shultz. What do they know about medical equipment? Nothing. So they were easily fooled by Elizabeth Holmes because they couldn't really assess whether the machine was working or not. In results, this is results works on poverty issues, but we never had anybody who actually had been in poverty become part of the organization or help lead the organization. And so they noticed this and said, we need to have some people help us learn and understand poverty better. And they went through this process of recruiting people who had come out of poverty in the United States, and then actually put them through some training in how to tell their own stories. So that they could clearly get their stories across to other people. And then they become leaders of the organization. They speak at all of our events. They speak before Congress. It's a way of making sure that we're hearing from the people that actually have been through the life experience of the people we are trying to serve. In microfinance, there are a lot of experts in finance and business that are on the boards, but very few experts on what it means to live in poverty or what it takes to come out of poverty. And so that's a key thing that we need to learn is how do we put that expertise at the board level, at the level of people who are making decisions about the future of the organization.
So I think we're finding that this can cut both ways. On the one hand, you want a diversified board so that you can have voices that are outside the finance world speaking into it. On the other hand, it's possible that people who don't understand microfinance won't be able to pinpoint the unique problems that can occur within microfinance. There has been some attempt to mitigate this by having a diversified board, but also microfinance industry players. You can have independent members with different expertise. At the same time, one CEO said we have at least 2 members that understand microfinance. One interesting thing that was noted was we also tried to bring people from the lower levels into board discussions. So that's a little bit different from board membership. But they said this educates the board on realities on the ground. They get to hear issues directly instead of always filtered. But this also provides managers or people on the ground with a sense of what is discussed, how the discussion goes, the level of transparency, but also the level of care that the board practices towards the staff and the clients. And that can be very helpful to the culture as a whole also.
Another thing I heard one organization do, they're an organization based in the U.S. that supports microfinance all over the world, and what they do is they select 3 or 4 case studies that they will follow all year long. It's just they randomly choose 3 or 4 people in different parts of the world, and they want to hear how that client is doing at each board meeting. And so if the client does better, if the client does worse, it's just a way of helping them connect with the actual lives of the clients that who they want to see get better. Any other things that you do to make sure at the board level you have some knowledge of the lives of the people that you're actually trying to serve? Does anyone have examples of that? Yep.
En el Chaco paraguayo, en el marco de la ASI, trabajamos con hoy 15 comunidades indígenas y el directorio está compuesto por los colonos como también de los indígenas que son los participantes de los programas. Nosotros tenemos muy buena experiencia con eso y yo creo que es algo esencial para llevar a cabo de forma efectiva los programas.
I'm terribly sorry, I forgot my translator.
In indigenous areas, they support my work.
In their program in the Chaco, the board is integrated both by Mennonites, but also for the beneficiaries, indigenous communities.
Interesting.
And the experience has been great.
Yeah.
Another thing some organizations do, if clients are grouped together and you have group leaders, then you can bring the group leaders together and they may select one or two people who represent all of the groups in a particular area, and they can provide information on how they see the program going from their perspective.
One more thing that may be worth noting that Opportunity has tried to be paying attention to over the last few years is the vast majority of Opportunity's clients are women. But do we have women who are empowered to actually be leading our organizations? Are they on the board? Are they in senior leadership? So we've been asking ourselves questions like that as well.
Another question?
No, I just wanted to share that with us also we have our trade committee representatives who are in the board or the executive committee along with the professionals in the industry. So we have a match of both the grassroots as well as the professional knowledge.
And I bet the discussions are very interesting between them, right? One more?
Something that I've been thinking a lot about with our organization, we're the Super Kids Foundation here in Paraguay in a town called Coronel Oviedo, is the globalization of communication via Facebook and social media. So our board follows both Facebook pages that we have. We have one for donors in the US and one for the community here in Paraguay. And it's really interesting to see differences in messaging. And we've had staff here comment on the narrative, right, that we tell donors and talk about how authentic that narrative is and give us feedback on it. And we've also had the other way where our board could kind of check on community reactions by seeing their level of engagement on posts. Because our staff here are the people who post stories of the community, and the families love seeing the stories of their kids, their families being featured, and they'll have, a million shares, a million comments. Way to go, felicidades, Tati, me encanta, qué lindo trabajo, and so they can kind of really see transparently how the community reacts to the work that we're doing.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Great idea.
Yeah, the mini story capture methodology that I just described, we found that as we analyze dozens of people's mini stories across 4 dimensions of their lives, that actually you can create a theory of change simply based on their stories. So this is not a theory of change that an organization imposes on people. This is a theory of change that bubbles up from their stories. So that's been a fascinating experience. You get a different message, right? You hear a different narrative.
All right.
Sorry, this was my slide as well. I just want to make one final comment. Larry has presented 5 different ideas coming out of this experience that might be useful for microfinance. As I was talking to our social performance management director, that's another team different from knowledge management, he was actually saying that the social performance management dimensions actually touch on these 5. Right. Social goals, external experts, board coverage, management and board accountability, and board composition is in some ways touched by the SPM universal standards. So I thought that's just worth touching on.
All right, we need to wrap up now, and I just want to say, noble cause corruption is something that all of us are susceptible to. In fact, there's probably a little bit of it, if not a lot, in your organization right now. And unless you are active in taking steps to push back against it, it may overwhelm your organization. You may become about the story instead of about the mission. And so this is something that all of us need to act on now. This is something that if we are going to accomplish what we have set out to do, we have to make sure that we are measuring whether or not that happens, and we are inviting other people to assess it. We are having at the board level, the management level, the integrity and transparency to show when we are accomplishing it, when we're not. And then that we have the expertise needed to help guide us through this. People who know the life of what it is like to be the person on the receiving end of what it is that you do. Those that participate with you in your work. The good news is that there are lots of organizations, and I know many of them are represented here, who do take these steps on a regular basis, and who don't let the public relations, the image and the media be the thing that guides them. They're guided by what happens on the field, what happens with their clients, how much they participate together in ending poverty, in bringing people to a better life. And I want to encourage you to keep doing this, use the stoplight as a tool for doing this, be transparent about what your results are, and you will help avoid noble cause corruption. Thank you.
Thank you. Based on your experience, how we can identify ways to differentiate corruption and mistakes? Why the question? Because, for example, at the beginning, you showed two examples. I'm not sure if they are corruption or they are mistakes. Maybe something that is maybe an action, it depends on the intention. Because if the intention is to produce money, it's corruption. But it is not the intention. Maybe it is not corruption, it's mistakes. And you can learn of the mistakes, maybe not of from the corruption.
And I think that's a correct differentiation. Another one would be corruption is something you try to hide, and a mistake, if it's brought out into the open, is something you can learn from. So it's how you react to it that tells you whether it's moving towards corruption or towards learning. If you're willing to talk about it, if you're willing to share it, then it can't lead to corruption unless everybody becomes corrupt. It becomes something that you learn from. But if you try to keep that secret, then it infects the organization, and you have to keep more and more secrets, and it just builds up until it destroys you. Right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Larry and Genso for that great discussion. Before we move on, we want to remind everyone that for those interested in the Scaling Up Clinic case study after lunch, we ask that you please go to the hotel lobby to pick up the reading materials. Now, we will listen to representatives' elevator pitches for the breakout sessions. The first two pitches will belong to the session starting at 10:45 a.m. and the following two belong to the session starting at 12 p.m.
And here are your session leaders. Roberto Gutierrez, Associate Professor at the School of Management of the Universidad de los Andes. Editor in Juan Carlos Pane, Doctoral Researchers at the Institute of Development Studies at the University of Sussex. Oscar Rodas, Director of Climate Change and Policies at BBF Paraguay. And for the leading director of the beautiful Cerrito Agricultural School.
Want me to start then?
Roberto, adelante.
Okay. I hope you have a great conference up until now.